So in this video, we're going to learn how to solve a quadratic inequality. So the first thing you need to do is you're going to need to rearrange the inequality so that you have everything on one side, so your quadratic, and 0 on the other side. So this is just like when you're going to solve a quadratic equation, you move everything over to one side so that it equals 0. Then you need to sketch the quadratic. So I made a video recapping how to do this, so if you can't remember that, I'd have a look at that video first. And then we need to use our sketch to determine which side of the x-axis satisfies our inequality. So if we have y is greater than 0 or y is greater than equal to 0, where y is our quadratic, then we need the parts above the x-axis. Whereas if we have y is less than 0 or less than equal to 0, then we're going to need the part below the x-axis. So let's look at a couple of examples. So the first thing I need to do is move everything over to one side. So that I've got everything on one side and 0 on the other. Now I need to sketch. So when I'm sketching, the first thing I need to think about is first the shape. So I know that this is a positive x squared. I don't have a negative x squared, so I'm going to have a U shape. Then I think about the y-intercept. My quadratic is all written out, so I know that the y-intercept is -4. Now I need to think about my x-intercepts. So we know we would put the quadratic equal to 0 and solve. This is a difference of 2 squares, so I can factorise. So I know that my x-intercepts are 2 and -2. So then I can sketch. So I draw some nice straight axes with a ruler, label my axes and my origin. So I'm going to go through -2 and 2, so I'm going to draw a nice parabola and label. Now I look back to my question and where I've rearranged, and I can see that I want it to be greater than 0. If I look at my graph, that's this part and this part. So I know that I want the parts above the graph. So that means I want that x is less than -2 and x greater than 2. So it's important to note that in this example, I've specified that the two solutions are separate and put an and in between my two inequalities. That's because if you look back to the sketch, you can see that the parts are not a continuous interval, so we need to separate them and show that they're not a continuous interval. So the first thing I'm going to do is move everything over to one side. Now I need to sketch. So I've got a positive x squared, so I know I'm going to have a U shape. Now y-intercept, which written out in this form I know is -6. And now I need to find my x-intercepts. So I know to do that I need to put my inequality equal to 0. And then I can factorise. If you can't factorise, remember you can always use the quadratic formula. So I know that my x-intercepts are -3 or 2. Then I sketch, labelled axes, origin. So I'm going through -3 and 2, so I know my parabola is going to be slightly to the left. And I know my y-intercept is -6. And I look back to my inequality here, and I want the quadratic to be less than or equal to 0. So what I want is this part under the x-axis, which is a nice continuous interval. So I can write that as one inequality. So I want x to be less than or equal to 2 or greater than or equal to -3. I hope you found this video useful, and let me know if you have any questions.